Hello. Good afternoon. I realize you had about 20 choices of programming to be right now instead of these seats, so I extra worship the people that are here. Thank you for picking me. I pick you. One of the themes of this event is making sure that everyone has access to life and career training. And I've been on that for about 4 decades, specifically about communication, how people should talk to one another, how teachers should speak to students, how leaders should speak to their teams, how couples should speak to one another. And I'm here today to give you the highlights of those 40-ish years as a voice coach. Specifically, as I said, I've been focusing on the sounds people make, okay? So here's the good news. I believe that people can use their voice to actually get immediate access to the skills and the things that they need to have a better life personally and in the workforce. That's the good news. And there really isn't any bad news, except that we have to take everything we've learned about oral communication and the way that it's taught and throw it out. 3,000 plus years of the way that oral communication has been accessed is wrong. We have to throw that away and start from scratch. Here's why that has to happen. Right now, and this is hard to believe every time I say it, the number one biggest fear in the world should be death. It's not death, it's public speaking. And that doesn't mean just being afraid of being on a stage and calling yourself a professional speaker and having an audience as nice looking as you are. It's just I'm at the dry cleaners talking to the person in the next, or trying to convince the person who's behind the counter to really honor this coupon that I have that's at least 6 months old. Talking, people are afraid of talking. Speaking. Used to be you would go into break rooms at large companies and people would actually be talking. Now you walk into a break room and it's silent and you're like, did I go to the wrong place? Is this a monastery? They're silent, they're on their phones. Nobody's talking. Biggest fear, speaking in public. Biggest in-demand skill on LinkedIn is what? Oral communication. That's a problem when you put those two together. That means the very most wanted skill set is the very thing that people are the most afraid of. That is a big problem, and that's why we need to change it. People are learning soft skills, hard skills, technology, and not learning soft skills, like speaking to one another. They're graduating from schools and other learning places and technical places, and they can't talk their way into a job that they want, let alone talk themselves into the relationship they want. Inc. magazine, Holmes Report, did a report a couple of years ago, and they said with companies that have 1,000 employees, each of those companies is losing about $60 million a year in lost productivity because of poor communication. But in those companies, if there was even one, not a lot, one leader who was a good communicator, then the 5-year return on investment was as much as 50% higher. With just one leader that was a good speaker. That's a big deal. As a voice coach, I've literally spent the last 40 years helping people use their voice to achieve what they want in life. When I started, I was just a singing teacher. And I thought, this is great, I'll just teach everybody how to sing. This is incredible. And that was good for a while. What happens when you teach somebody how to sing? They sell more records. They sell more t-shirts, more concert tickets. That's cool. I like that. I worked with some amazing groups. But then some 17 years later, because it took me that long to realize it, I didn't want to just make great voices. I wanted to use voice to help make great people. That's when I made the transition into not only taking singers, but also speakers. And that changed my life, changed a lot of the purpose of my life and the passions over the last years. As I said, the spoken communication, the oral communication system is bust. We're all here for a few days trying to come up with ideas and plans to make things better for education, for ed tech. But unless we globally learn how to speak with one another in a way that connects us instead of divides us, how in the world are we going to be able to solve any of the bigger problems? They asked me to be one of the keynotes on Earth Day for the United Nations. And the theme was Save the World. And why'd they pick a voice coach? Even I was like, why are you picking me? I knew, but I just was humble and said, what, are you sure? You want to think about it? And then I put together a speech that was, how could we possibly agree on anything until we can decide we feel the same way? We have to feel the same way. And once people communicate and feel the same way, we can get together. We're not going to agree on words, but we agree on the way we feel together. Once we agree on that, we can actually make changes. The problem is that traditional oral communication system is word-based, thinking that if I had the right words to say to you or to you, that I could achieve some outcome for the communication that I would want to achieve. But words by themselves don't actually have any emotion attached to them. I love bananas. I hate bananas. I like the color red. I hate the color red. You have no idea how I feel about red bananas. Science says that the way we process spoken language is first for emotion and then for logic. And the way it works is the first part of the brain that sound goes into is called the amygdala. And the first job of the amygdala is to decide, is that emotional or is that logical? Because if it thinks it's logical, then it doesn't even pass it along to the prefrontal cortex, where the brain can process it and think about things and decide how we feel about it and attach it to memories and then put it in our own memory and save it for later or act on it. The amygdala stops it if it is not deemed as emotional, and yet words aren't emotional. You see the problem here. I've set it up. People have gotten, sadly, used to communicating on text or emails, and then you write your heart out in the text, and then just to make sure the person really knows how you feel, you put an emoji. Well, that's sad. But I get it. I mean, the words aren't going to convince anybody of anything. Emojis. It's crazy. We need an oral communication system that is sound-based, because the brain thinks that sounds are emotion. You want to meet my brother? He's great. Do you want to meet my brother? He is great. You'll love him. Sound-based. But there wasn't an oral communication out there that is sound-based, so I had to create one. And that's what I've been working on for years. I'd like to share a bit of that today, some of the highlights of it so that you understand that it exists. And I believe it needs to be the new standard for the way oral communication is taught and applied, not only in school, but in every time somebody opens up their mouth and sound comes out, if they want to achieve any actual real outcome and connect with anybody. If we can get the world people speaking together, that's more than enough reason to change the way that we speak to one another. So let's dive in a little bit deeper. Right now, when I speak, sound is supposed to come riding out of my mouth on a solid stream of air, and it is supposed to vibrate your bodies. Now, you can't see sound, but that's what happens. So that's why I say sound isn't just an oral thing. It's a physical thing. My voice actually vibrates your body. So when that happens, we're physically connected. Some of the sound goes in the ears, and like I said, the first part that it goes to the amygdala and then the prefrontal cortex, if you're lucky. I call sound that gets stopped at the amygdala and doesn't go deeper into the brain, I call that shallow communication. And when it goes further to where I want it to go so that people feel things, that's called deep communication. That's the name of my learning system. That's the name of my oral communication system, deep communication. How many times have you been in situations where you either said or you heard phrases like, nobody listens to me. No one on my team is on the same page as me. We keep having the same discussions over and over and over, and nothing gets decided on. The reason is you're using shallow communication, or they are to you. But as I said, deep communication is sound and emotion-based. So when I speak, it bypasses the amygdala and goes right to the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that processes it and does all of the things that you want communication to do. They say, and you've all heard this phrase, people don't remember what you said, but they remember how you made them feel. And now you know the science behind that, because it is science. That's not just a man's tale, because I'm sick and tired of blaming those things on wives. It's not a man's tale, it's an untruth. Most of what people say falls on deaf ears because it's shallow communication. You can have the perfect words sitting on the tip of your tongue, but if it doesn't reach the other person and if it isn't perceived as emotion, you're not talking to anybody because they're not really listening. Let me ask you something. Over the last 24 hours, has anyone raised your hand, listened to any kind of music, listened to any songs, radio, music at all? Okay. Have you ever wondered why you can absolutely remember the chorus lyrics to about 500 songs that you've learned since birth, but you can't remember what the topic was of the meeting yesterday or a conversation? You can't even remember the name of the person that you met an hour ago, but you could belt out songs that you were singing when you were 3 years old still. As a singer and a musician myself, I realized decades ago that singing and speaking was the same thing, and it was ridiculous to separate it. It's the same instrument, vocal cords and the control over air. But it's the same thing. The problem was that people separated it. Singing could have melody and volume and all these wonderful elements, and speaking was supposed to be what? Void of all those things because we're calling it something else? It's not something else. When you're singing or when you're speaking, you basically have control over 5 elements. The elements are pitch, which is how low or high you speak. Do you speak really downhill like this? Or do you speak really high like this? Pace, how fast or slow you go. Tone, how airy or edgy you are. Volume, how loud and soft you are. And melody. Is it a melody that is no melody, monotone, and just on the same note? Does it ascending scales, descending scales? Pitch, pace, tone, melody, and volume. That's all you have. I call those the building blocks of voice, and they exist for speaking and singing. They're the same. So I just realized that what I'd spent 17 years teaching singers to be the most famous singers in the world, and the ingredients of my recipe was I was manipulating their pitch, pace, tone, melody, and volume. So I thought, well, this isn't rocket science. Why don't I just do that with speakers? But when Tony Robbins and John Gray and Susie Orman and all these famous actors started coming to me way back then, I turned them all away. I said, no, I'm a singing coach. It says on my card, singing. And they were like, well, we don't have any place else to go. And eventually I took them. That discovery of singing and speaking being the same thing changed my life. And I've dedicated my life to the discovery of sound and the impact on the brain and on emotions and feelings. Music and deep communication light up the exact same parts of the brain. It triggers emotion and memory and action. When it's done correctly, the way it's intended, it's supposed to be that the person who's talking to you, you're thinking that their speech is like music to my ears. And you accept it as music. You don't have to accept it as speech. It's all music. Who do you know that speaks really loud all the time? And you're always like, whoa. They don't get this signal. They're speaking loud to you, and you're like this. But they don't stop. Who do you know that's very, very soft? And you think they think they're being humble or sweet or kind, but they're really soft and you can't hear them. Who do you know that speaks high all the time? It's just they're excited about everything. I went to a funeral the other day. It was amazing. Those flowers, they were incredible. They speak high all the time, thinking that, wow, if I'm high all the time, I'm going to show that I'm really young and exuberant and happy. Or people that you know that speak low all the time, thinking that this is like sexy or cool. Or, yeah, come into my room. Yeah, super fun. That one. Who do you know that speaks so fast that it practically blows your hair back when they're talking to you, and you can barely catch the vowels or the consonants or the words? Who do you know that speaks so slowly, saying, look, this is really complicated. A plus B equals C. And they're thinking they're being instructive to you, and you're thinking, do they think I'm an idiot? Are they thinking that my brain doesn't work as fast as their mouth? Who do you know that talks edgy all the time? People do this. Hi, I'm watching The Bachelor or The Bachelorette, and I really wanted to get that one-on-one date. I don't know why she or he didn't pick me. I mean, I did so well today. I look great in this outfit. Look at these abs. They talk like that. I know you know people that talk in monotone the whole time because most of the world talks in monotone, like a piano that only has one key. They never go up, they never go down. It's just this. Like, I really want to tell you about this. I know you've heard speakers like this already at the conference. It's just one note. Somebody gave them a piano, there's only one key. What are they going to do with it? It's only one key that works. If they get really excited sometimes, they go up to this, oh, and then they come back to this. Would you buy a song that only had one note? Rappers have more than one note. There's plenty of singing going on in lots of rap music. Who do you know that always talks in ascending melodies? Good day, mate. How's it going? Is it okay? What are you going to do? Where should we go for dinner? Or that speaks in descending scales. It's my birthday. Nobody got me any presents. I don't think you realize or have given much thought to every single one of those emotions. Every single one of those sounds actually has an emotion and a perception attached. When I have descending scales, it makes me sound sad. This is my favorite day. This event is so fun. And when I have ascending scales, it makes me sound happy. This is amazing. I love bananas. I love red bananas. I don't even think there are. Ascending scales make me sound happy. Like I said, all the sounds that I demonstrate, they're actually attached to different emotions, and they make people feel a certain way as soon as you make the sound, but most people are not taking responsibility for understanding that. By using deep communication techniques, you'll be able to optimize the precious gift of your voice. More people listen to you. Your teams will get on the same page. Goals can be achieved faster and better. You need to have better communications if you want to have better relationships. What are relationships? A bunch of communications strung together over a period of time. Can't communicate, how are you going to possibly have any kind of a long-term relationship? You need to become more intentional about the sounds that you make. But most people, like I said, are not thinking about the sounds. The only time they're thinking about their voice is when they lose it. You know, the number one reason that people come to me isn't because they're smart and they've realized that I'm teaching something that nobody else is teaching and that I've already taught all the most famous voices in the world, and maybe there's something there. They call me when they've lost their voice. I can't talk. Really? Well, maybe you should have thought of this before you lost your voice. I've got to sing. I've got no voice. Got to speak. Can't do it. So as a culture, we're not even thinking about voice until we wake up in the morning and we say to the dog, and the dog says, what? And we realize we don't have a voice. We're like, oh my God, I better find a voice coach. Tea with honey's not going to fix it. Here's the also thing you need to understand about sound. You don't just have one voice to sound the same way all the time. At work, I'm very good at having the voice coach voice. Very strong. I'm omnipotent, I'm omnipresent. Whatever the problem is, I'm going to fix it. I come home with my omnipotent voice coach voice to my wife, and I say, hello, I'm here to fix all of the problems. What's the issue? What's going on? And she was like, whoa, take out the trash and come back as my husband. And then I changed my voice a little bit. What's the biggest change I make from work to home? Longer silence at commas so that she could tell me everything she wants to tell me. Silence. If I spoke to my kids the same exact way with the same tones, the same pitch, pace, tone, melody, and volumes that I use for my wife, they'd run naked on the freeway eating ice cream. So you don't realize it, but you are playing all sorts of different characters and using your voice in those different characters. And people wonder, man, I'm just not successful at this part of my life, but I'm really successful at this. And the last thing they're thinking of in the world is that maybe they need to change their voice a little bit because it's how they're being perceived. When you go to a concert of an artist that you love, does the artist just do all ballads and the whole time? No, you'd be bored to tears, even if you loved the ballads. Even the old-fashioned ballad singers still try to mix it up with a little bit of up-tempo so you don't fall asleep. But we as speakers, if we're lucky to even find one sort of a character voice that works for us, we just think, oh, that's good, that's perfect. And we just use it all over the place. But you're boring people, and it's not working in all different situations. We need to have work voices at work and partner voices at home and parent voices and best friend voices. When I'm playing basketball in the adult league, I can't talk to the person who's guarding me full court like I talk to my wife. Oh, just let me get around you one time. I promise we'll go out to breakfast tomorrow. You need different voices, different characters. To do that, to set that up for you, we have to go back a little bit in time to your birth, where it all started. I want to explain the phrase that I say all the time. You're not the voice you were born with, but all of you think that you are. You were born with an instrument. Grandma passed. I'm so sorry. Grandma passed. But she left you a Steinway piano. Oh my gosh, my grandma passed. That's terrible. She left me a piano. That's good. I either decide to put it in the living room and learn how to play it, or I use it as a picture frame holder. It's an instrument capable of making great music. We were all born with an instrument. We imitate the sounds of the people that we grow up listening to. So if mom speaks like this, and I wanted to love me more than my brother, then as soon as I can speak, I'm like, Mommy, I'm so cute, much cuter than Phil. If my dad talks like this, I really like fishing. And I want to go fishing with my dad. As soon as I can speak, I'm like, Daddy, fishing. We mirror the sounds that are in our environment. Suddenly we're older. And we now think that this is our voice. No, it's the voice we mimicked. When people meet me, I say, what's working for? I figure out what's working for them in the sounds and what's not working for them in the sounds. And then we rebuild it just like tuning a great piano. So let me go a little bit further into this idea of For example, melody, okay? Whether you realize it or not, every time you speak, your voice is creating some melody that's making people feel something, okay? I'm going to turn on my keyboard here. I'm going to ask you the same question twice. Same question twice. Same words, different melody. Do you want to go to the movies? Do you want to go to the movies? You're like, okay, I like Disney. I'll go with you. Do you want to go to the movies? Do you want to go to the movies? No, I'm afraid of scary films. I don't like blood. Do you want to go to the movies? No. Do you want to go to the movies? Yes. All I did was change the melody, and it completely changed the emotional content. That's a really simple example, but you understand what I mean by that. Changing even something as simple as a melody changes the whole emotive reaction that you have. You didn't realize it, but your elementary school teacher was leading you down a very, very dark, wrong rabbit hole. They were very nice, and this is your nap place, and this is your nap place. But they led you down astray, even just with regard to melody, by bad example. You were taught to go down when it gets to a comma. That's my banana. I'm going to talk until I get to a comma. When I get to a comma, I'm going to go down. When I get to a period, I'm also going to go down. The only time, little Raj, you're ever allowed to go up in melody is when you get to a question mark. That's my nap place? Is it my lunch? So they restricted us into thinking, just by learning melody, by imitation, that we were supposed to go down at commas and periods. That's descending scales. That makes you sound weak and powerless and sad. Do you know that most people, when they say their name, they go down at the end? They're like, hey, what's your name? And they say, Roger Love. Now what? I was born with the name Love. I didn't change it, by the way. Now I'm apologizing for my own name. Also, why are people interrupting us all the time? Because every time you go down, they think you're finished. The reason they're interrupting you is because your melody is telling them I'm done. Oh, wait a minute, I have so much more to say. But my teacher told me I'm supposed to do it this way. And how is that ever supposed to stay connected? You're sending out mixed messages. Deep communication, people learn how to change their pitch, pace, tone, melody, and volume so that they can affect the perception that they want, showcase the emotions that they're actually feeling, connect words to the emotions they're actually feeling, and then we can have authentic conversations. Hey, this is how I feel. Now let's hear how you feel. And then you tell me how you feel. You know, people are all about emotional intelligence over the years, became the buzzword, like forget about IQ, just be emotionally intelligent. How the hell are you supposed to know what people are actually thinking when words lie, or feeling when words lie? The only way that you find how somebody is feeling is actually by focusing on the pitch, pace, tone, melody, and volume, because sounds don't lie and words do. If I just am bleeding from my big toe, but I put a smile on my face, I lie with my physicality, and I lie with the words that say, my toe feels great. But what if it's bleeding? People are afraid of volume because they don't want to come across angry. And volume is a key ingredient of anger. So people generally speak softer because they don't want to come across as being like, I don't want to be mansplaining. I like that expression. So I can't be loud, but yet volume is one of the things that actually sends my voice far enough away that it vibrates more bodies. So what's the problem? The problem is, again, we haven't been told what sounds create what emotions. Do you know that anger takes 3 different sounds? Check this out. To make anyone sound angry, you have to be louder, you have to be monotone, because nobody has any type of melody when I'm mad. It's always monotone. I've been waiting to say this to you, and it's been really pissing me off, and now I'm going to say it. Monotone. And you have to speak faster. Nobody sounds mad. You can't sound mad if you're loud and you're slow. You can't sound mad if you have any kind of melody. I am so mad, somebody just stole my car, and it really is upsetting to me. I love that car. So volume by itself isn't the devil. Volume mixed with fast pace, mixed with monotone, is the sound of angry. I literally have taken the 4 main emotions and all the rest of the minor emotions and broken them down actually into levels of pitch, pace, tone, melody, and volume and classified them. So I even have a scale that shows people what emotion they're feeling. Wow, time flies. 40 minutes goes fast. I'll tell you about a project that I'm excited about. I'm working to be the voice of the metaverse. I'm working on a project. Michael Moe's one of my partners, and we are entering into the metaverse space with also somebody that you'll hear speak on Tuesday, Eric Poulier, who's the father of NFTs, and he's also part of the team. And we're going to use the power of the metaverse and the human voice to actually connect people. We're creating a place, a social media place in the metaverse where people will go to have the most fun they've ever had with their voice and communicate on all different levels and do everything from sing to speak to learn about and housing all of that in a place where they actually learn to use their voices by being entertained so that it changes the way people speak. I just say in closing that it's more than time to change the way that people communicate. I'm doing it by basically teaching the world that there's no difference between singing and speaking, and by teaching deep communication and not resting on that words are going to get me to the emotions and the communications that I need. I believe we can use voice to overcome the isolation and the loneliness and the sadness that is world filled right now. The Surgeon General says that almost 70% of the population feels isolated. And Cigna Health said that 60% of the population is lonely. Because they're not talking. Social media is not fixing that. Your likes isn't making you not call Suicide Prevention Center just because you have got an extra 3 likes. You have to start connecting with people. I really believe that the way to do this, for me, is to help people change their voices. My goal is to make the world a better place, one voice at a time. We need to make sure that with all of this building of AI, that humans who speak unemotionally do not end up teaching AI to speak just as unemotional as humans. AI has to have at least a fair chance of sounding maybe more human than human and elevating the way that humans speak. So I'm in that space as well with emotional communication, teaching deep communication so that robots actually hear the sounds that people are making and are more able to perceive the emotions that humans are having based on sound, not by words, and then be able to respond more appropriately. We need to make sure that the world stops thinking that words are going to solve any of the problems, and we need to focus on the sounds. And I really, really appreciate you being here with me today, and I hope you just have the greatest next couple of days ever, and that you meet people that'll change your lives, and that you tap them on the shoulders, and that at the very least, you stop doing descending scales. You start using ascending scales. You speak a little louder, but because you have melody, they just think you're strong and powerful and passionate. That you don't speak so slowly all the time when you're trying to explain to an adult something that you think is technical. Even remember a few of these things, have great communications. May all of the communications that you have over the next couple of days lead to the outcome that you want. You'll never get there with words, but you get there from emotion to emotion to emotion. You lead people from this emotion to a different one. You've changed everything in their head. That's the way to create communications and relationships. So thanks for listening. We'll see you soon. Tap me on the shoulder and say hello, as I'll be here over the next few days. So thank you so much.